This is where we take the source material you're curious about, the research, the articles, the lists, and we really just break it all down for you to give you the essential knowledge you need to be genuinely informed. And today, today we're tackling something I think is pretty crucial for everyone. We're looking at a blueprint for a complete cognitive upgrade. We've got this fascinating set of material that outlines 15 surprisingly simple everyday habits. And these aren't those huge life-altering commitments that you try for a week and then, burn out.
Right.
No, these are micro habits, and they're designed to make you demonstrably smarter. We're going to get into the why behind each one, the actual science. So think of this as your shortcut to understanding the small things that, over time, give you a massive return on your brain power. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, what's so great about this source material, I think, is how it blends really simple self-improvement with, actual cognitive science. We're not talking about impossible goals here.
No, not at all.
It's this curated list of 15 behaviors, and they're all focused on mental and physical maintenance. The main theme is just so clear. Intelligence isn't some fixed thing. It's not something you're just born with, and that's it.
Right. It's a process.
It's a process, exactly, step by step. And it's built on these small, consistent actions you take every single day. So it democratizes the whole idea of getting smarter. It brings it down to earth.
And that is our mission for this deep dive. We're not just going to read you a list. I mean, anyone can do that. We are going to dissect the how and the why. Why does a 10-minute walk actually change your ability to solve a problem? Or why is learning just a single new word so important for your internal dialogue, for how you actually think? The goal is for you to leave here not just with a to-do list, but with the specific knowledge of how these habits, which often take, 5 or 10 minutes a day?
That's it. Tiny commitments.
How they fundamentally improve your brain's structure, its energy, its performance for the long haul.
And to do that, we've grouped these 15 habits into 4 logical clusters, just to make sure we can really dig in. We're going to start with the mechanics of how knowledge flows. So how we take information in and then how we get our thoughts out. Optimizing that daily input and output.
Perfect. Let's jump right in. The intellectual habits that are really the foundation for all cognitive growth. Okay, so we're starting with the most fundamental input strategy, habit number 1. And it seems so simple on the surface, reading every day. But the source material puts a huge emphasis on this. Why is that, especially when, we all feel like we're already reading constantly online?
That's a great question. And the sources are really careful to make a distinction. They distinguish between, let's call it active focused reading and the kind of passive skimming we do online.
Right. Scrolling is not reading.
Exactly. And this active reading gives you 3 benefits that compound over time. First, it's just feeding your brain a steady diet of new ideas. It prevents you from getting stuck in a rut, cognitively speaking. Second, it's probably the best, most natural way to learn new words. And finally, it leads to a much deeper, much richer understanding of the world, because it forces your brain to follow complex ideas or narratives or arguments from start to finish.
I really like that they tackle the big mental hurdle right away. The material specifically says even 5 minutes a day can make a difference. That feels doable. It feels designed to just get you over that initial hump, that inertia of, I have to read a whole chapter.
It's all about consistency over intensity. And look, there's absolutely a place for that deep, long-form reading, of course. But for just maintaining your neural pathways, that consistency of a short, daily burst of focused input is, it's non-negotiable.
So it's like a daily workout for the language centers of the brain?
It is. 5 minutes of truly focused reading every single day. It makes sure those neural circuits for language, for comprehension, for pulling up vocabulary, they're getting reinforced constantly. You're building this strong semantic network that's always on, always ready, instead of one you have to sort of, dust off and warm up every time you need it.
That idea of reinforcing the structure flows so well into the next one, habit number 3. Learning one new word. I mean, you get words from reading, like you said, but this is about a specific, targeted focus. It feels like a different kind of training.
It is. It's targeted. The obvious benefit is, you sound more articulate, but the cognitive link is actually way deeper than that. When you know more words, you can speak better, sure, but the real key is you can think better.
Okay. Unpack that.
Your vocabulary provides the raw material for your thoughts. It gives you the tools for nuance. If you only have vague, general words for things, then your ability to think about complex emotions or subtle differences in an argument, or even just plan something abstractly, it's all severely limited.
So you're saying that expanding your vocabulary is literally like upgrading the resolution of your own thoughts. You're giving your inner voice more precise tools to work with.
That is the perfect way to put it. You're engineering precision into your thinking. And the actionable part is almost laughable, right? Just one word a day. That's a 30-second commitment. The return on investment for that 30 seconds in terms of long-term cognitive clarity is just off the charts.
Yeah, you could use an app, a calendar, and
Yeah.
there's no excuse, really.
None. The minimal effort means you can't procrastinate. It makes the habit sticky.
Yeah.
And you end up with, what, 365 new high-precision tools for thinking every year? It's a huge cumulative game.
Okay, so moving from that kind of input, let's talk about a more active pursuit. Habit number 6, asking questions. The source says curiosity helps the brain grow, but what's actually happening in the brain? What's the mechanism that makes asking a question so powerful for learning?
Curiosity is the engine, because when you ask a question, you are actively identifying a gap in your own knowledge. You're saying, here is something I don't know. That act of formulating the question, it's like it turns on the brain's search function. And that process is driven by neurochemicals, especially dopamine. Dopamine is linked to reward and novelty. So when your brain anticipates that it's about to learn something new, that's the reward. It literally enters a more receptive, more motivated state for learning.
And I think it's so important that the source material addresses that social fear we all have, the fear of looking dumb. It says, and I'm quoting here, there is no silly question. Every question teaches something. That's such a powerful piece of psychological permission.
It is, because it removes that fear of judgment. And that fear uses up a ton of cognitive resources, right? You're worried about what people think. When you let that go, you free up all that brain power. And by asking questions, you switch from being a passive bucket that information gets poured into to being an active architect of your own understanding.
I like that, active architect.
Plus, just figuring out how to ask a good question forces you to organize what you already know. It makes you define the edges of your knowledge, which is a really powerful skill in itself.
So asking questions is about going out and getting knowledge. Habit 8, listening carefully, is about making sure that when that knowledge comes in, you're actually receiving it properly, with high fidelity.
Yes, and this has a huge dual benefit. On the one hand, it helps you understand other people, which is crucial for, everything in life. But for yourself, for your own brain, the source emphasizes that good listening makes your brain highly active and focused.
So it's not a passive thing at all?
Not at all. We're talking about a core cognitive skill called selective attention. That's the brain's ability to tune out all the noise, all the distractions, and lock onto the signal, the speaker's words. It's a mental workout.
And the material even suggests things like listening to podcasts or stories is good practice, like this deep dive, for instance.
Right, because you're training your brain to handle a complex stream of information. In a world that is just saturated with noise, the ability to maintain focus, to pull out the key points, and to sort of mentally rehearse what you just heard before it disappears from your working memory. That is maybe the most underrated intellectual skill you can have. You're training your brain not to drop any of the data.
Okay, so we've covered the input side of things. Reading, asking, listening. Now let's flip to the output side. How do we take all that stuff that's floating around in our heads and make sense of it? Starting with habit number 2, writing a little.
Writing is the bridge. It's the essential link between your kind of messy, abstract internal thoughts and a structured linear expression of them. The core function, the source says, is that it helps you organize your thoughts. The result is immediate. Your brain becomes clearer.
Let's define clearer, though, because it's not just about being tidy. What does that mean in a cognitive sense?
It means you're forced to engage in metacognition thinking about your own thinking. When you write something down, you turn your thoughts into objects. You externalize them so you can look at them, critique them, move them around. You literally can't write a confusing sentence without, on some level, realizing it's confusing. And the source is smart to say this can be anything. Write about your day, your feelings, your goals. It doesn't have to be a novel. All of those activities force you to reflect and process, which lets your brain stop endlessly looping on unresolved thoughts. You've captured them.
It's the difference between just vaguely worrying about a problem and actually defining on paper so you can start to solve it. And to take that clarity and use it in the real world, you need habit number 11, thinking before you speak.
This is real-time cognitive control. It's so simple, but so powerful. That little pause before you respond, it engages your executive function. It gives you a split second to find better words, to avoid making a mistake, to stop that impulsive gut reaction that our brains love so much.
And that's where the new words we learned from habit 3 come in handy.
Exactly. It all connects. That pause gives you a chance to access that richer vocabulary. And the immediate payoff is huge. The source says it makes you sound more confident and smart.
Yeah.
But it's more than just perception. You're actually doing quality control on your own output, making sure what you say is what you actually mean.
It's like switching from your brain's automatic mode to manual mode, just for a second.
That's a great way to think about it. Our brains default to what psychologists call System 1 thinking fast, intuitive, automatic. A deliberate pause forces you into System 2, slower, more logical, more deliberate. That tiny little pause is an investment that can prevent huge misunderstandings down the line.
Okay, that's a perfect wrap on the flow of knowledge. We've got the machinery for input and output, but all the best software in the world is useless if the hardware can't run it. So now we have to talk about the engine itself, the biological and environmental factors that power the brain.
Right. So if the brain is our supercomputer, it needs power, it needs maintenance, it even needs a cooling system. Let's start with the absolute most basic thing. Habit 4. Drinking water. Yeah, this one is completely non-negotiable. Your brain is something like 75% water. The sources are really clear. The brain needs water to work well, and the effects of even mild dehydration are instant, and you can measure them.
You feel tired, slow.
Tired and slow. But it's not just feeling sleepy. It's actual cognitive sluggishness. Your brain is literally slowing down.
But why? What's the specific mechanism? Is it just part of general fatigue?
No, it's very specific. Dehydration affects the balance of electrolytes in your brain, which is critical for sending electrical signals between neurons. When there's not enough water, the speed of those signals actually drops. Your neurons can't fire as quickly or communicate as efficiently.
Wow. So we're talking about signal degradation.
Signal degradation, exactly. Plus, your brain's energy production, creating ATP, relies heavily on water. So if that slows down, your executive functions, things like paying attention, focusing, processing things quickly, they all take a major hit.
And the advice is so simple. A small sip every hour. It's not about chugging a huge bottle of water twice a day. It's about stability.
It is. The brain loves stability. It operates best in a stable environment. A constant, low-level supply of water is so much better than flooding the system every few hours. It's about keeping things at peak operational status all the time, not dealing with these huge swings of being thirsty and then overhydrating.
Okay, building on that, let's talk about movement. Habit 5, which is another one with a really low barrier to entry, walk for 10 minutes. A 10-minute walk feels like just a nice break, but what's actually happening in the brain during that time?
The sources point to a critical dual benefit here. First, the obvious one.
Yeah.
You're getting fresh oxygen to the brain, which it needs for energy. But second, and this is the real game changer, even that short burst of activity triggers the release of something called BDNF.
BDNF. That's brain-derived neurotrophic factor, right? I've heard it called miracle grow for the brain.
That's exactly what it is. It's a protein that helps your existing neurons survive, but it also encourages the growth of brand new neurons and new connections, new synapses. And it's especially active in the hippocampus, which is the part of your brain that's critical for learning and memory.
So a 10-minute walk isn't just a break to clear your head. It's an active command to your brain to grow and strengthen itself.
It is. You are actively stimulating neurological growth. And the source has also mentioned stress reduction. When you're stressed, you have hormones like cortisol flooding your system, and cortisol is terrible for higher level thinking. It literally gets in the way.
So the walk fights back against that.
It's an immediate chemical intervention. Getting your heart rate up just a little bit helps your body process and clear out those stress hormones. So you're not just adding the good stuff like oxygen and BDNF, you're actively cleaning out the bad stuff that's inhibiting your thinking. The work you do after that walk is going to be so much more focused.
Which leads us perfectly to the fuel for this engine. Habit 14. Eat brain foods.
Right. The logic is simple. Healthy foods give the brain power. But the sources are specific. They highlight things like nuts, fruits, fish, and eggs. And these aren't random choices. Each one delivers key components that the brain desperately needs.
Let's break that down. Why fish and nuts, for example? What's in them?
Okay, so fatty fish, like salmon, are packed with omega-3 fatty acids, especially one called DHA. DHA is a structural component of your brain cell membranes. Better membranes mean faster, more efficient electrical signals. It's like upgrading the wiring in your brain.
And nuts.
Nuts have things like vitamin E, which is an antioxidant that protects your brain cells from damage from stress. And fruits give you a steady supply of glucose, the brain's main fuel. But they package it with fiber so you don't get that sugar spike and crash.
Well, it's not just about good food in a general sense. It's about providing the specific building blocks for healthy neurons and a stable energy supply to prevent that afternoon brain fog. The source puts it perfectly. Good food, good thinking.
It's an unavoidable equation. You just can't expect your brain to perform at its peak, to do complex things like store long-term memories or solve tough problems if you're giving it junk to work with.
So the brain is fueled, it's hydrated, it's oxygenated. Now it needs to run its maintenance cycles. And that's habit 7. Sleep enough. We all know sleep is important, but what's the specific function here that's so crucial for getting smarter?
The sources frame sleep as the brain's ultimate maintenance phase. It's not downtime. The core function is twofold. The brain uses this time to fix itself, and crucially, to store information. This is where learning actually becomes permanent.
Let's go deeper on the fixing part. What does that mean?
There's this incredible process called the glymphatic system. During deep sleep, the space between your brain cells actually increases, and this allows cerebrospinal fluid to wash through and flush out all the metabolic waste that built up during the day.
Like a dishwasher for the brain.
It's literally a dishwasher for the brain. It cleans out toxins, including the kinds of plaques associated with neurodegenerative diseases. If you don't get enough sleep, that junk just stays there, gumming up the works and impairing your thinking the next day.
And at the same time, it's storing information.
Yes. While it's cleaning, it's also replaying the memories from the day and moving them from your short-term storage, the hippocampus, to your long-term storage in the cortex. This is called memory consolidation. Without sleep, this just doesn't happen effectively.
So if you pull an all-nighter to study, you're not just tired, you're actively preventing yourself from actually learning the material you just studied.
You are sabotaging the entire effort. Exactly. The knowledge stays superficial. You're skipping the save process. It's intellectual self-sabotage.
Okay, finally in this section, we have to talk about digital hygiene. This is a modern-day necessity. Habit number 10, limit phone time.
Yeah, and this is all about defending your capacity for deep thinking. The sources are very clear on the danger. Too much phone time makes the brain tired, and more importantly, it actively stops deep thinking.
Okay, what's the neurological difference there? What is deep thinking versus the state our brain is in when we're scrolling on our phones?
Deep thinking requires sustained, unbroken focus on one single complex problem for a long period of time. The digital world of our phones does the exact opposite. It trains our brain for rapid context switching. A notification here, a quick scroll there, a 5-second video here. Every one of those switches taxes your executive function. It burns a little bit of cognitive energy. When you do that hundreds of times an hour, you're just draining your battery on pointless channel flipping, leaving no power left for the hard focus work that actually matters.
And the solution in the source is pretty simple. Take breaks, set limits.
Right. It's about letting that cognitive muscle, the one responsible for sustained attention, actually recover. You have to intentionally create boredom. You have to starve your brain of that constant shallow stimulation to rebuild its ability to go deep.
We've now built the foundation. The brain is fueled, it's rested, it's protected from digital noise. The input and output channels are optimized. So now let's talk about how to actively challenge our minds to make them more agile. All right, this next habit is about breaking out of our routines. Habit number 9, try new things. We all kind of know that challenging our brain is good, but what does novelty itself do to improve the brain's actual structure?
This one is all about neuroplasticity. The mechanism is simple. When you do something new, you force your brain to build new connections, new neural pathways. When you're just doing your daily routine, your brain is super efficient. It uses the same old pathways it has used 1,000 times. It saves energy, but it doesn't grow.
So novelty is basically like forcing your brain to go to the gym instead of taking the elevator.
That's a perfect analogy. It's resistance training for your brain. And the result is a brain that is physically stronger and more flexible. We're talking about a process called dendritic branching, where your neurons literally grow new arms to connect with other neurons.
And the sources are great because they say this doesn't have to be some monumental task like learning Mandarin.
No, not at all.
It can be trying a new food, taking a different route on your walk, even just trying to do something with your non-dominant hand. It's the variation of the input that matters, not how big the challenge is.
Exactly. It's about disrupting your brain's established cognitive maps. When you do the same things over and over, those pathways become like superhighways. They're smooth, fast, efficient. But learning even a simple new skill, like a new card game, it activates totally different circuits in your brain, forcing it to change and adapt. It makes you better at handling all kinds of unforeseen challenges later on.
So that's the external challenge. The next habit, number 13, is the internal challenge, which, let's be honest, can be even harder in our world today. Spend time alone.
It really can be. Quiet time, true solitude is becoming so rare, but it's absolutely essential. The purpose of this habit is to give you time to actually understand your thoughts. This is where the real processing and connecting of ideas happens.
And we should be clear, this is not about being lonely. This is about choosing to have structured, quiet, reflective time. The source even says the bar is incredibly low. Just 5 minutes of silence can help your brain relax.
And in those 5 minutes of silence, something incredible happens. Your brain's default mode network, or DMN, gets to turn on.
Okay, what is the DMN?
The DMN is what your brain does when it's not focused on an immediate external task. When you're not answering an email or listening to a podcast, it's the network that handles introspection, digging through your memories, planning for the future, and just sort of simulating different scenarios. It's where creativity and aha moments often come from.
So if we're constantly filling every single spare second with input music, scrolling, podcasts, we are actively preventing our brains from doing that crucial background work.
You're starving it of its processing time. You're just piling on more and more data without ever giving it the space to sort, to catalog, and to connect that data into meaningful knowledge or wisdom. The alone time allows for that integration. Without it, all the things you read in Habit 1 just stay as disconnected facts.
Okay, so we've covered the physical machine, the intellectual habits, and the need for new challenges and quiet reflection. That brings us to the final and maybe most important piece of the puzzle, the psychological foundation, the mindset that makes all of this other stuff actually work. Let's talk about habit 12. This one feels a little different from the others because it's about emotion, but the sources list it as a critical cognitive tool. Practice gratitude. I mean, why is simply saying thank you for the good things in your life on a list of ways to get smarter?
This is where we get into emotional regulation, and it has a direct, measurable effect on how well your prefrontal cortex, your thinking brain functions. The definition is simple, right? Gratitude is just acknowledging the good.
I have to push back a little, though. Is this just positive thinking? How do we know that practicing gratitude actually changes how your brain works, instead of just, putting a happy sticker over your stress?
That's a fair and crucial question. The power of gratitude isn't just psychological, it's neurochemical. When you genuinely focus on something you're grateful for, you activate the reward circuits in your brain. You get a little hit of dopamine and serotonin. But more importantly, it actively works as an antidote to cortisol, the main stress hormone. High levels of cortisol are toxic to the brain. They damage the hippocampus, they impair learning, they impair memory. Gratitude helps shift your entire neurochemical state out of that defensive, stressful fight-or-flight mode.
And that's the connection. You create a calm mind. The source makes the link explicit. A calm mind can learn faster and think better. You're literally creating a better chemical environment for learning.
Precisely. When your mind isn't busy scanning for threats or managing anxiety, all of those cognitive resources are freed up. They can be redirected to complex problem solving, to your working memory, to storing new information. So gratitude isn't just a nice feeling. It is the optimal psychological state for cognitive growth. It's a mandatory setup for peak performance.
That is a powerful connection. Gratitude as a neurochemical prerequisite for learning. And that brings us to the final habit, number 15, which really ties this all together. Be patient with yourself.
This is the meta habit. It's the one that makes all the others possible. The source is very realistic here. It acknowledges that becoming smarter takes time. Building new neural pathways is a slow process. You will learn step by step. So this habit is about being kind to yourself through that process.
Because if you try all 14 other habits, have a perfect day, and then you mess up on day 2, that impatience, that self-criticism, it just makes you want to quit everything.
Exactly. It's the all or nothing trap. This habit frames it as a marathon. Neuroplastic change from habit 9 only happens through sustained, repeated effort. So if you miss your 10-minute walk one day, or you only read for 2 minutes instead of 5, patience allows you to say, okay, that's fine, I'll get back to it tomorrow. It stops that downward spiral of quitting.
It's really about embracing the accumulation model. The tiny benefit of these 15 habits done imperfectly but consistently for a whole year is just infinitely greater than one perfect week followed by giving up. Without patience, the other 14 are just temporary.
And that final synthesis is probably the most important message for you listening right now. Every small habit makes you better. And it's the consistency, which is only possible with patience, that is the master key to unlocking real long-term structural change in your brain.
This has been an incredibly practical deep dive. It really shows how these small, consistent acts spread across these 4 different areas: intellectual flow, physical infrastructure, mental flexibility, and your mindset. They all work together to create this powerful, but most importantly, achievable way to grow. #outro. So we started this with a mission to really understand the why behind 15 simple daily habits. And I think we've done that. We've seen the critical balance, right? From the absolute basics like drinking water and getting enough sleep to the more focused intellectual work like reading and asking questions. And it's all held together by that foundational mindset of gratitude and patience. These are not radical changes. They are small, everyday things you can actually do to rewire your brain.
And the big takeaway for you, the listener, should be this. Intelligence is not some fixed state. It's a continuous process of tiny, deliberate daily improvements. And now you know why they work. You know that walking is delivering BDNF to your brain for growth. You know that sleep is turning on the brain's cleaning system. You know that writing forces you to think about your own thinking.
Right?
And when you understand the why, a chore becomes a choice. It becomes a deliberate, powerful act, which makes a habit so much more likely to stick.
So what does this all mean for you right now, today? We've talked about 15 habits. Many of them only take 5 or 10 minutes. You have the blueprint. You have the science. So we'd encourage you to pick just one of those super easy ones. Maybe it's the 5 minutes of focused reading to build your brain's network.
Or the 5 minutes of silence to turn on your default mode network.
Or that 10-minute walk to get a hit of BDNF.
Yeah.
Pick one and just integrate it into your routine today. So the question for you is, which single, small, biologically proven habit will you choose to start your long-term cognitive upgrade right now?
Thank you for sharing your sources with us. Keep questioning, keep learning, and keep diving deep.
Until next time.